There he is again, man who's only half visible with the big orange hands. Today we have something indeed strange again, namely somehow... It's actually about the Diana 27, but since I have the Diana 25 here, I can actually just start the lesson with a direct comparison. Because I really like the Diana. I like it a lot. Not the biggest, not the prettiest, not the best, but shooting with it is just fun. But it's an idea, maybe a bit too small. And then it was said that the Diana 27 is basically the same. Everything is a bit bigger. Yeah, and we're just going to take a look at that now. I would say the most important thing is to first hold the things steady. You know this, it's always 20 shots. 10 meters shooting from a seated position. This one is from the Diana 25, this one is from the Diana 27, but this one has a scope and this one has a red dot. When you shoot with a decent red dot, it looks like you're just as precise as with a scope. But basically, it's because you don't see the wobbling and the slight misses. So I assume that if I mount a scope on the Diana 27, it will look just like that. But it's essentially because you just don't see the shaking and the slight misses. Even now, with 20 shots, adjustments are needed, but all stay in the black. Remember, recreational youth rifle. Right now it's still a bit different, but still, even for 20 shots, you can see that I still need to adjust a bit. But even then, all 20 shots stay in the black area. And let's not forget, these are recreational air rifles, not match rifles. They're just youth rifles. That's what they were called. Oh, I've just pulled out the stuff here. Insect stuff is flying around here. This here is a catalogue from 1905 and 30. And there we have at least the Diana 25 and below. The Diana 27. By the way, you can easily find this picture on the internet. Just click on Google and type in Diana 25 or Diana 27, whichever you prefer, and then just click on Images. You'll see those catalog pages pop up all by themselves, and then you can take a nice look at them. An extremely solid model for older youth and adults. These are the 25 here. All parts made of steel. Excellent shooting performance. Price with smooth barrel. 21 Reichsmarks with rifled barrel. 22 Reichsmarks, 50. They were available with a smooth barrel. You remember what I said about spring pins, right? About these fuzzy pin thingamajigs. They're only meant for smooth barrels? So the precision rifle. Diana 27 is completely different from back then. That's why we don't want to ignore it any longer. Let's just put that aside. Here we have Model 25D and the Model 27. That was back then. Is there a date on it? I'm afraid not. Each early. The 25 cost 57. But hard to recognize. 15 Reichsmarks and the Model 27 cost 72 Reichsmarks. These are also the predecessor versions. 2001, because there's no prism rail, front sight tunnel, and everything is a bit different. And I also brought this one along. I also found this one. At some point it comes from the in, because suddenly we're talking about 7.5 joules. And if you look at the model 25 Dora, you can see that the front sight tunnel is already on it. And you can also recognize the prism rail here. But take a look at the stock, the front end of 2001. And the trigger guard, they've suddenly become square. Those are indeed the early years. Wait a minute. That's also from the late years. The catalog must be from the early years. This thing is from 78. This one is from 81. At some point, you'll recognize which month it is because the numbers are microscopic. So this catalog must be later than that because the design language is different. However, neither of them had a fish skin yet, while the 35 already had a fish skin. Yes, and oh, very important, here the butt pads at the back. They already have rubber butt pads on them. That's not the case with either of them. So they both must still come from the same production series. I'd say that was the time period. They're 3 years apart. So it seems that this change hasn't happened yet. Now let's take a closer look at the 27. So first, the butt plate, just like on the other one. There aren't any It's made of ribbed wood, and this stand button... Well, you know, back then they still had parquet flooring in the shooting ranges, and that was basically a guarantee against slipping. Here we have the same thing. I'll go through them in order first before I get sidetracked. The trigger guard is made of metal. Trigger blade is made of metal, and the 2 screws for adjustment. So that really looks almost identical. I would say the shape of the guard is almost interchangeable. The side looks identical. Here you can see the sight is completely missing. No GR, no front tunnel, none. That's why I got it cheap. What did I pay? You always want to know that. I think it was 67 with it. No, there wasn't a scope on it for a change. So you really have to have some guts to get something like this for so little money. Because this is also an excellent piece of work again. Just look at it. I'll hold the barrel right under your nose. You're just a camera, you're not really here. Check out this bluing. Yeah, those were just different times back then. That's why I'm so into these pieces from the late 80s and early 90s. Because my goodness, they really had it. Word quality was still written in capital letters back then, because today you get something from China. So here it just says caliber 4.5 and an F sign. The word quality was still written in capital letters back then, because today you get something from China. So here it just says caliber 4.5 and an F sign. Back here we have, oh god, I really need a jeweler's loupe or something. Well, I can't read that in this light. That's how it is. Can you maybe read that? I'll hold it up to the camera for you. I'm zooming in on the back part. I'll get as close as I can. I'm afraid it will be even blurrier then. Well, anyway, now you understand why I can read it. It's really damn small. And up here we have the Diana logo, 27. So there's no mistake about it. Where's the serial number actually? I think that was the long NR here. I need to write that down later for my records, because I keep documents in several places around the house. Maybe it will get broken into somewhere and something will be stolen. And then I want to be able to throw the serial number at the person. Yeah, I have a razor on here, you see that right, because my 2 red dot sights, the ones I have from back in the day, they're both for the Viva rail, and at some point, I don't know why, I got an adapter from an 11mm prism rail to a Viva rail. Or Picatinny? It's basically the same thing. Yeah, and here I've finally used it. It's great, it's fun to shoot. In the long run, I will also set up one of the various scopes that are lying around here, because a red dot sight is great for shooting at moving targets. No, shooting at moving targets doesn't mean you're shooting at refugees. Unless in the hunter's language, for example. During a drive hunt, the game doesn't stand just anywhere. Wild boars in particular don't stand around grazing and then get shot from ambush. They run around away from the beaters, and you have to be able to shoot at them with something with a nice red dot, and for that you use red dot sights on moving targets that aren't magnified. It's not really optimal for target shooting, but I just wanted to quickly try it out. I already had it lying around and thought, let's give it a shot. And I have to say, in the end, a scope is definitely better. It was a nice change, using this old, decent red dot sight that had been lying around for a while. I thought, now I can finally put it to use. By the way, I can just hold it up to the camera. What color should we go with? It was a nice change to finally use this old, decent red dot sight that had been lying around for a while. By the way, I can just hold it up to the camera. What color should we go with? I think green. The camera can probably show green a lot better. Yeah. Now it's getting a bit complicated. Can you see a dot? Because on the monitor here, I actually can't see it right now. I hope you can see it. If you can't, then you're really out of luck. You can still adjust this down here and display different thingamajigs. It's a bit tricky. Wait a second. Especially since the camera is basically upside down, going in the opposite direction of what I'm doing here. Like this, like this, like this. Well, I think there was something... Don't exaggerate. I'm going to break some bones off here while doing this. So anyway, here you can see different ones. With circles and crosshairs and all that little gimmicky stuff. You can overlay it. Great thing, but just can't compete with the scope. Trigger, same as here. Here there's a hole, 2 screws. One is for countering and the second is for adjusting the trigger. The previous owner set this thing up so that I now have a really long take-up, very light, and then a trigger that goes off just by looking at it wrong. For me, that's on the edge of safety because it's risky, and then a trigger that goes off just by looking at it wrong, that's for me on the edge of safety because it's risky. Normally, I want to have some kind of pressure point. That means I have a take-up and then at some point a slight resistance and then bang. Normally, I want to have some kind of pressure point. That means I have a take-up and then at some point a slight resistance and then bang. There's practically no resistance to feel here. That means I wouldn't shoot this thing with gloves on. I'm going to set it up again later so that it's like my competition rifles, meaning a very, very light trigger, but with a noticeable point. Where's the end? Where does it go? Bang? That's a bit too sharp for me. But like I said, the trigger is adjustable. Great. So it's just great overall. So, that was it. The rest looks like a break-action rifle. You know, break-action rifles have manageable differences. Everything looks good, everything feels good. Above all, a break-action rifle needs time to break in. This one took 50 years to break in. And they have broken in. That's part of the fun of the whole thing. How easy everything is and how still that thing hits. I'm enjoying it. So now let's do a little comparison here. So everything starts. The stock is the same length and seems to have pretty much the same shape. The trigger guard, the trigger as well. It is, I'll call it a system sleeve or a pressure piston, whatever you want to call it. I need to articulate myself properly here. I will finally be looked at. I will be under the watchful eye of my interested audience. The stock is longer. I mentioned earlier that it shoots 5-something joules because of the wear and tear of time and so on. I can't believe that anymore. I believe that a certain piston size just eventually has the ideal balance between pressure and spring stiffness. 2001. That's why this one has a slightly larger piston. Let me check that again. What are they writing about this? The S models, yes, with rubber butt pads. He doesn't have that here yet. So there's relatively little about it. 4.5 pulled, 100. The 25DS is listed here with 170 ms and 175 ms. And 175 meters per second. So they give them a 5-meter difference. Whether that's true, we'll get to that in a moment. I already have my tablet here, which means we have a longer piston that hypothetically creates more power. But by the way, I will also look into that. There are some very interesting discussions about that. What happens first? Does the piston come in at the front first, then the Diabolo comes out at the front? Or is the pellet already out before the piston can follow? When the piston is all the way forward, does the recoil affect the precision, blah, blah, blah? I need to read everything again. It's highly interesting, scientifically very demanding. But as I said, I plan to reactivate my slow motion camera so that we can actually see the muzzle when everything happens quickly enough. 1,000 frames per second isn't much. When it comes to this, everything happens in the microsecond range. The stock, it's longer. Yes, but relative to the hinge joint, there's not much of a difference. I think the hinge joint itself looks very similar, maybe just a bit bigger. The piston is a bit longer. The barrel, the actual barrel, where is it here? There's the seam. The barrel is maybe 5 centimeters longer. I'll say that. I don't know what the grain would have looked like, whether it would have been a roof grain or a bar grain. By the way, I've also looked it up in the meantime. This here is called a spring sight, right? You know, a curved sight is the one where you have a slider that goes over a curve. There's the ramp sight, which is when it slopes up, like on the Diana Oktoberfest rifle, for example. That's a spring sight because you can click it up top. Yeah, that's completely missing here. Of course, it affects the price. It's manageable, especially since I shoot with a scope anyway, so I really don't care at all. My old eyes don't like open sights as much as they used to. Yeah. Have I already told everything there? Because there's usually not that much to say about break barrel rifles. It goes bouts at the back, and then at some point it goes bouts at the front. Let's take a look at the numbers. Interestingly, I can operate this thing here, my weird gloves. So, let's take a look at the display of values. We're here now. The Diana 27 shows me the values. Diana 27, 6 joules, 5.1 joules, 5.6 joule, 5.2 joule, we're in between, so between 5.2 and 6 joules. Yes, there is room for improvement, but it is more than enough. For a target like this, it doesn't really matter whether it is hit with 5 or 7 joules. And to be honest, based on everything I've seen here, there are relatively few air rifles that really dare to approach the 7.5 joule limit. The Stöger, for example, they can do that. And the competition air rifles, they can all do it. But with the regular rifles, especially the older ones, there's always a bit of variation. There's a production variation. And to avoid accidentally going overboard, that's why they do it this way. So what did I say? 5.2 to 6 joules. I just saw a 6, but 6 joules is roughly the one we're talking about. Then let's take another look at the Diana 25, and it tells me between 5.2, 5.3, 5.3, and 5.3, and down at the bottom, 4.8, 4.9, 4.8, 4.9, 4.7, 5.3, and down at the bottom, 4.8, 4.9, 4.8, 4.9, 4.7, 94.8, 4.9, 4.7. So between 4.7 and 5.5 will kill me. This one here, this is the one I have a lot of fun with. So you can obviously have fun even with 5 joules. Not the same as is common internationally, with a lot more power. But our naysayers won't allow us anymore. The responsible citizen is not allowed to do that. So, yeah, I still have a lot to say about that. I want to take a look now. I can design stock extensions with the 3D printer, with other rifles. The other rifles have a straight end and then a stock cap on top of that. And of course I can print spaces for that. It's tricky here. I could print a cover like that, but I practically have ABS on my shoulder. 2001 isn't that bad, but I'd really like something that looks a bit better. And I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to just saw this thing off straight and then put in spacers, because they are original. But it's not tragic. So if you're looking for a Diana 25 or Diana 27, it takes a weekend. At Airgun, both of them are always there. The question is always, can you get them as cheap as I did? Just wait until I can shoot something that was affordable. And also considering that I have to keep selling here, it would be nice if I could at least cover the shipping costs. And there are also covers, like cases that you can put over them, but they are mostly for shotguns, i.e. for shotguns, because shot and gun are actually a contradiction. Well, a shotgun is shot, otherwise it wouldn't be a smoothbore shotgun. And these covers are usually too big for something like this. I'll keep an eye on it. It's smaller, not short. It's thin, meant for young people. My wrist tilts forward. I can take a shot with this thing, and I can really feel that it's quite thin. It's really meant for young people. And I'm also pretty close with my arm here, which means my wrist tilts quite far forward. If you shoot a lot, you eventually notice it. I have a, what's it called again? The coyote, the Gamo coyote, exactly. 2001, when you take a lot of shots, you eventually notice it. I have a, what's it called again? The coyote, the Gamo coyote, exactly. So it has a whole stock, that's what it's called, with a pistol grip. That's so much more pleasant. So if I could find stocks, I might consider investing in that. I'd rather invest directly in a rifle with a whole stock. The Gamo Toyota shoots well, but I didn't want to venture into those regions. Unfortunately, such stocks are usually more expensive than the whole shotgun, and so I prefer to invest in a rifle with a thumbhole stock, which then has to be of a certain quality. And the Gamo Coyote shoots well. PCP rifle. But I didn't want to go there. I bought the Coyote used for little money, and here the value isn't good. If I spend too much, maybe I'll print something for a fuller grip. I bought the Coyote used for not much money, well, relatively little money, and here the price-performance ratio just doesn't add up anymore. If I spend too much money here, maybe I'll come up with something with the printer, so I have some kind of grip that makes it feel a bit fuller in the hand. I can shoot like this with a lot of air in between. That's not the point. So, yeah, something's bothering me here. I really should always change the stock to make something work here, but I don't want to. These things are just fun as they are. And I have rifles that shoot better, that shoot stronger, shoot more accurately, but to be honest, these are just fun. They're just so wonderfully straightforward. You pop the pellet in, bang, no automatic safety. No lever to switch, nothing at all. That's exactly the fun of these things. All right, now I've just added some text that nobody needs. Oh me. I was just about to say, I got my old suitcase scale somewhere on eBay, which also measures decimal places, and quite a few decimal places. So I'll just pull on it a bit. So this is also in the gram range, right? It shows up to 1/100th of a gram. Sorry. It actually shows up to 1/100th of a kilo, so grams. And I think you can also set it somewhere so that it practically keeps the value. You could do that here too. But this one already starts with a nasty look, like don't give away batteries. Here. So, this one already starts with a nasty look, and this one is okay. But I'm sure I'll have a big orgy like that with the other shotguns. Set them up, adjust it, and try it. Real trigger mechanisms have a crossbar and roller on top. No trigger weight requirement for air rifles. It's also kind of funny, normally real trigger mechanisms have a crossbar and a little roller on top so that the roller always goes exactly in the middle and isn't pulled from somewhere up or down. This is always important for competitive shooters because the sports regulations stipulate that athletes do not have to pay any trigger weight at all for air rifles. So, the minimum trigger weight for air pistols is, I believe, 500 grams, and for service pistols, meaning large caliber, it's 1,000 grams. Haven't looked up more than that. So, thank you very much for watching, says the man with the big orange hands. Hoping it entertained you in some way. And now I'm going to have to turn off my camera all by myself. Across